morning. Am I audible at the back of the hall? Great. My name is Amrish, and I wanted to start off by thanking TiE Chennai for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's always a truly humbling experience for a nice middle-class boy who has made a bunch of mistakes through his entrepreneurship journey, got lucky a lot, and had a bunch of great people decide to work with him to come in, speak to an audience such as this. And I'm thankful and I'm truly humbled by the opportunity. Thank you very much, TiE Chennai. So the topic that I was asked to speak about is actually a little different from just acquiring your first customer. And this stems from the fact that while, as Mr. Soota pointed out, a lot of you are entrepreneurs or planning to be or already have set up your businesses, it's very important for you to get your first customers in place. However, it's really important to be able to do it in a manner which helps grow your business in the longer term. So balancing profits, profitability, the amount of money you make with the kind of customers you get, and then what you do for them is frankly the most important call that exists for any entrepreneur, right? I think if you achieve it, and I know that we are striving, we've made 100 mistakes as Pepperfry. However, we've also got a few things right, and what I will share with you is how we thought about the problem, so to speak. Achieving it is going to be nirvana, okay? And once you achieve it, frankly, the unicorn status or your billion-dollar IPO or a great strategic acquisition, all of that will pale in comparison because you will have a nice, robust business going, right? So without further ado, and I'll take about 30 minutes to share with you my thoughts on this and leave about 15 minutes for questions, which you can then ask me on all aspects related to entrepreneurship. So here's the thing. We are in a great place in India, right? We are, over the last 5 years, there's a lot of good stuff that's happened. However, there are still a lot of problems to be solved. And therefore, there are opportunities for great businesses to come about, which will solve problems such as this, which is, the problems of distribution inefficiencies that exist in India. They will solve problems related to connectivity. They will solve, we have the opportunity to solve tons of problems that exist in our country. And fundamentally, we are a great country. We are a country where consumption is great, and we know that there is the willingness to try new things. So therefore, when there is an opportunity to solve problems is when entrepreneurship can truly flower. The other thing that's happened, and it's very different from what used to be the case 5 years back actually when I started Pepperfry, it was really tough for me to get folks to join Pepperfry. And that was because entrepreneurship, startups went like really cool, right? I remember seeing this movie and I thought, oh boy, this guy's leading the charmed life and, I want to do something like him and so on. But it was tough. Of late, startups, entrepreneurship, new ideas have become more in vogue. And therefore is something which allows for the overall ecosystem, allows for new ideas to get developed and new innovations to happen. In this context where we have bunches of problems to solve, which we hopefully should be able to, and we have a culture which is now widely spreading, the culture of entrepreneurship, the thing that opens up in front of us is, okay, so what's the secret sauce behind how we get to delight customers while ensuring that we are spending just about the right amount of money doing it? And the math's actually a very simple one. And I'm sorry, I'm a little mathematically inclined, so I will keep showing graphs, etc. However, bear with me. The math is simple. The math is that which drives value for customers should be greater than the cost of delivering this value. Very simple math. You should know what all is it that drives value for customers, and the cost of doing that, of driving that value for customers, should be less than the value that the customer derives. Now, it's a simple statement. It's also a complex statement when you think of it. But here's what it might mean. And let's talk about what drives value for customers, how can you give customers a great experience, how can you acquire that first customer, how can you, basically ensure that even as you're acquiring millions of customers, you have a fair handle on what is it that's driving value for them. And this is the formula or the equation that after years of getting it wrong, as well as a few years of getting it right, the team at Pepperfry and I, we came upon this method of thinking about it. And here's how you think about this. Okay, so I can't project on it. Let's say a customer gets multiple benefits from using your products or your services or the IT systems that you build out or whatever. And that benefit comes in the form of having a very low price to start with. And this is not unknown, right? I mean, whenever we think of things like e-commerce or startups in India today, we think discounts, we think great pricing, we think, oh, when is the next iPhone going to be available at 10,000 rupees less with a 5,000 rupee cashback, right? So price is important. And don't get me wrong, it's the duty of every business to grow, right? If you do not grow, there is no point of running that business. So therefore, it is the duty of every business to grow, and price is an important lever to get growth going in that business, right? The second thing could be ease. The third could be just the salience you achieve as a brand, or how many people know of your brand, how many people have heard of your brand, how many people have interacted or purchased with your brand, or purchased your brand or your brand of goods or products, and then talked about it to other people, which creates word of mouth and so on. Now, when you, and the fourth is just the uniqueness that you think you offer. Mr. Soota covered it. What's your proposition? What's your differentiation? What is it that you offer that nobody else does? Now, all of these four things are, in my mind, things that add up in a customer's mind. And if these things cross what is called a purchase or a delight threshold, the customer buys from you. We got it, right? So the customer buys from you if the sense of these utility functions or the benefits that the customer is getting from the product or service that you offer crosses a certain threshold. Now, here's the interesting thing. There is a very important part of this threshold, and I call that or let's call it insight. Insight is the one thing that you know, which is based on your knowledge of the customer, which ensures that if you get it right, you don't need to spend as much money on delivering the rest of the four things. Here's how it works. The first three things, they actually cost a business money. So if you're thinking profits, if you're thinking how should we be, funding ourselves, whether it should be a bootstrap, not a bootstrap, should we go and get VC money, should we not get VC money, think about the first three things. Delivering products at low prices costs money. Delivering products easily on the next day, within 24 hours or within the next 3 or and so on, costs money. And building a brand out, getting people to start talking about it, doing television advertising, be it internet advertising, television, what have you, building a brand out costs money. The top two, the uniqueness of your business and how you leverage the insight that your business has, actually does not cost money. What it costs or what it takes is how well do you really know your customer, right? If you know your customer well, the top two buckets, which is the insight on which you are building the business and the uniqueness that your business offers to the customer, will allow you to cross that purchase or that delight threshold without needing to spend too much money on pricing, convenience, or building a brand out. You with me? Now, here's how this worked in our case, in Pepperfry. Everybody's heard of cash on delivery. It was the next best thing after sliced bread. India's entire e-commerce sector got driven by cash on delivery. In Pepperfry, but cash on delivery takes money. It takes the money of, first you got to send the product across to the customer, then the customer will check that product out, Then they will decide whether they want to actually keep it or not. And you guys know that very often, perhaps one in 4 times, that product's returned just because the customer changed their mind at the last moment. And all of this takes money to do. And at Pepperfry, we sat back and we said, okay, so what should we be doing about this thing called cash on delivery? And here was our insight. Our insight was our customers really will not appreciate cash on delivery. And you know how the insight got built up. And this is for you to think through as you're looking to do your business. Because I sell products which are more than 10,000 rupees worth. And how many people in the audience right now have more than 10,000 rupees in their wallets? Quick show of hands. Wow, man, you're rich, guys. Normally, so there are 2 people in the audience that I could see who have more than 10,000 rupees in their wallets. Now think about a guy who comes to your doorstep with a 10,000 rupee product and you do not have 10,000 rupees to give to the person. So you have to go to an ATM, get out that money, then give it to the person. It's not convenient. And we figured that our customers really didn't treat this as a convenience. What they treated as convenience was things like EMI. So we went out and built out 15 different methods of paying using your credit and your bank account, credit cards and your bank accounts. For us, EMI was more important. We decided that's the path we will take. Electronic payments done in advance to us is the path we would take. And we said no to cash on delivery. So this was a choice we made as a business, keeping in mind this. Our insight was it's not a convenience. Our uniqueness was the fact that we had great variety, and we said, hey, if all of this is what we are offering, perhaps cash on delivery is not something that we need to spend money on. And these are the kind of trade-offs when it comes to value delivery that you would be making as a business, or you should be making as a business on an ongoing basis. So that's how you deliver value. There's another part to the equation, which is this is all the money that you spend, right? When you do this is money being spent, at least for the smaller 3 buckets. The other part of the equation is how much money do you make, right? And that's a really important part of the equation. And this is it. I mean, frankly, if any business achieves this, you really don't need to worry about the rest. Scale will take care of. And here's what you got to achieve. Whatever you make as your gross margins, from them, you reduce the amount that you spend in delivering that, all the direct costs related to delivering that product or that service. And if you arrive at a contribution margin which is greater than 0, frankly, you're done. Because it could be a really small amount, but as long as it's positive, the more you sell, the more you will take care of your overheads and you will become profitable. Then it's only a question of how well your business will grow. But this fundamental math, which is you have enough of a gross margin to start off with, you spend sensibly on all the direct costs related to servicing that order or that service, and then you have some contribution margin left over. If you have that contribution margin left over, if you sell enough of those products or enough of those goods, you will become profitable. Now, here's where people get it wrong. They get it wrong because you don't start with enough gross margin. You spend a lot more on delivering value, especially in terms of direct costs, than you actually make as your gross margin, and therefore you have nothing left over. You have a negative contribution margin. Now, fortunately for Pepperfry, we are in the furniture space where the gross margins are great. We do have a very efficient supply chain, so we have some direct costs, but we make significant contribution margin. And after that, it's just a question of how many beds I'll sell, how many coffee tables I'll sell, or even how many blinds I'll sell before I eventually break even. But this is the math. Remember this math. If you are losing money on every transaction that you do, which is after you take out direct costs, you have no hope in hell of ever being profitable, and therefore the business is not something which will sustain in the longer term. However, while that concept of delivering value is important, and the concept of making money is important, the one thing that you should all realize is that we are in a street fight. And every entrepreneur at any point in time is in a street fight. Here's the thing, there were some characteristics of entrepreneurs which Mr. Suta laid out, and actually they resonated completely with me. One of them was the fact that the entrepreneur needs to be resilient. He needs to persevere, and he should minimize risk. I think with the three issues. Let me tell you, today we as a company have the fortune of having raised hundreds of millions of dollars. We're doing really well. Our business is growing rapidly. We are now a force to reckon with in the overall furniture space. We are India's largest furniture company, online or offline, and it's taken us just 4 years to get there. And I'm sorry if this sounds like a shameless Pepperfry plug, but it hasn't always been like this. There have been times when we've had no money. There have been times when, as a business and as the folks in the business, we got together and we said, okay, we'll all just not take any salaries for 12 months so that we don't need to let anybody go. And those are the street fights that every entrepreneur will need to go through. Especially when you're an entrepreneur like me. I mean, my mom was a scientist. I have had no businessmen in my family forever. The idea of losing money to build a business has never been an idea that has resonated very well with me. So it's very important to know that you're in a street fight. It's very important to know that you'll have to take calls on an ongoing basis in your business, which will potentially not be easy calls, but you'll have to take them. And even if you do all of this, frankly, the only thing that I think matters in a business, and businesses where I would put money and invest in, is the degree of differentiation that that business establishes. Now, a lot of you would have heard of the Porter's model, how the 5 forces work together, etc. There are a few things which are really important there. And the most important thing is this. If you're not differentiated, and if you as a business are selling a product or a service which is very similar to what somebody else is selling, then your ability to make better margins and make more money is actually lower. So the true test of the degree of differentiation that you build in your business is the kind of margins that you're able to make. And the higher the margins you seek to make, the more profits that you eventually get to are all a function of the degree of differentiation you establish in your business. And differentiation does not need to necessarily come only from the product that you sell or the service that you sell. It could be in the culture you build. For example, there are 3 things in Pepperfry we are very proud of. One is called intensity as elements of our culture. One is intensity. The other is called courage. And the third is learning agility. Let me talk you through what that means. Intensity means basically working really long hours in office and being available 24/7, including weekends. I'm not a fan of work-life balance, and therefore, actually in Pepperfry, we are not fans of work-life balance. We are fans of working super hard. And that's intensity, that's passion, that's how we get more done in more time. And that's part of the culture we're building. The second element of courage is the ability to ask questions even in large forums such as, for example, this, where you think, should I ask that question? Is it the right question to ask? What will other people think about it? It does not matter. If you are convinced and you have conviction in what you think and you're saying, go ahead and raise that question. Ask that question. Be courageous. And that's the second thing we value in our culture. And the third is learning agility. I mean, I've very often heard of people being classified as experts. So let me just say my view on e-commerce and expertise in e-commerce. We are a 10-year-old industry in total. Somebody like Pepperfry has been there for 4.5 years. 10 years is nothing to build expertise in any industry. And therefore, what we look to do is get people on board who are good at having done 5 different things in the past, none of which necessarily needed to do with e-commerce. And if they have that ability of doing those 5 different things, we think they're learning agile, and that's therefore an intrinsic part of our culture. So the goods you provide could differentiate you, the services you provide could differentiate you, the culture you build could differentiate you. And in a country like India, where frankly, and I agree, capital is easy to come by, just the capital that you raise could be enough to differentiate you. However, it's very important to have differentiation. If you don't differentiate, all of the value delivery that you wish to give to your customer, all of the money that you wish to make will go to naught. And therefore, differentiation is key. So folks, without taking more of your time, remember this. It's a simple equation. That which you want to give to your customer, and it's not everything you want to give to your customer. Stack it up. Remember that it's not about delivering all of these 5 things. It's about delivering, I mean, you could be delivering all 5, and that's a great place to be in. It's about delivering whatever it takes to get you beyond that purchase and that delight threshold. Very often, we as entrepreneurs make the mistake of wanting to deliver to everything. And that doesn't work. That costs money. So as long as you're clear as to what is it that drives value for your customers, and as long as you figured out a method of ensuring that your costs for that are lower than what you than the value that you deliver to your customers, go ahead and do it. So that, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to chat about. Happy to take on any questions you might have. Thanks for your time, guys.
We do have some questions, sir. Resilience, perseverance, and minimizing risk. Are these necessarily inherent? How do you foster these skills?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. So let me take the third one first, minimizing risk. I think the riskiest thing that you would ever do on an entrepreneurial journey is to become an entrepreneur. Very often people have jobs, they give up those jobs, they have other methods of making money, they give them up, and then they decide that that's the biggest risk you've ever taken. I think after that, I would come from a slightly different point of view. I'd say, you've taken the biggest risk in your life. What compares to it? Nothing compares to it. And so therefore, given a choice between doing the cautious thing and doing something which could result in way higher levels of growth, I would go for way higher levels of growth. So that's how I would look at risk. Perseverance, I think, is intrinsic. It's not giving up. It's arriving at solutions which, there's this term we use in India called jugaad, and I think jugaad is a really positive thing. It is a method, it's a hack to get to a solution at half the cost and very often half the time. And that jugaad is actually inherent to the way a person or an entrepreneur perseveres and so on. So I would say, you've taken the risk, that's hygiene, get it out of the way. After that, perseverance is the most important thing to do. Outside of which, but hey, I could be wrong, and there are things that I've done in life and at Pepperfry which I've been wrong. But these are the mantras that we followed.
Does your intensity impact your attrition rate? My apologies.
Very surprisingly, it doesn't. And the reason why it doesn't is, with intensity comes something which very few organizations are able to provide, the people who work with them. And that is pride. Okay, when we started Pepperfry, there was no business out there which I could copy. And don't get me wrong, I actually think imitation is the best form of flattery. So if there was a business out there that I could have copied, I would have gone ahead and copied it blindly. I would have actually improved what they did, hopefully, but I would have copied that business model. The thing was, when we started off, there was nothing that I could copy. And therefore, I needed folks who were willing to try new things all the time, were willing to accept that they would get a whole bunch of them wrong, but still have the energy and the intensity to keep at it. It's basically called being a pioneer. I just think that word's a great word, and therefore I don't use it that often, but it's that pioneering spirit. Along with which we realize that when you have people like that on board, the entire culture is one of pioneering and intensity. And what people take out of it is the pride of building something new. If I wanted to sell mobile phones just like somebody else did, or sell t-shirts like somebody else did, perhaps it wouldn't be as much fun, and we wouldn't truly be able to say, we differentiated because we're doing something nobody else does. And with that, we're differentiated, we're doing something which nobody else does, comes pride. And I think that pride is what keeps the team together. However, some amount of attrition, in my view, is actually good for a company. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of attrition, as long as it doesn't go out of whack.
As contradictory as this may sound, are there any rules to keep in mind when setting foot in the street fight?
Yeah, be fair, I think is the first rule. So the first thing is be fair. I know it's odd, but even if you're fighting, you fight fair. I think it takes and it builds in the culture of your company. If you fight unfairly, you're not building a good culture. People look up to you and they think that fighting unfairly is okay. So fighting fair, I think, is really important. That's the first rule. The second is know who's on your side. And that's a very important one because, it's, if you know who's on your side, you'll play to your strengths, you'll approach it as a group, and, squads and groups succeed very often where individuals do not. So I think, yeah, those two rules important to keep in mind.
Okay, here's an interesting question from the audience, which has a more personal connotation to it, which is an e-commerce furniture company. Why did you name yours Pepper Fry?
Yeah. So actually, let me give you both sides of this answer, and please don't hold me to it. So the first one was that when I was looking to build the company, I had written down on a piece of paper 3 things that I wanted to build the company on, 3 values. Now, I don't call them values. Look, we are small people. I mean, there are people who've built better businesses around us and so on, and we are always very, humility, I think, is an important part of what makes Pepperfry what it is. The 3 values I wrote down were, I wanted to build a truly Indian company. I wanted to build a truly honest company. And I wanted to build a company which is fun. Basically, have fun along the way. So Indian, honest, and fun were the 3 things that I had set out. Pepper is something that India has been famous for ages. It's the reason, so to speak, why a whole bunch of the Western world discovered us. And there's a great story behind why they needed pepper, but that's a different day. But so they discovered us for pepper. It's also a very honest spice. Every Indian knows the smell, taste, etc. of pepper. It's not like one of the obscure spices like cinnamon or something. It's pepper, everybody knows, right? So it's very honest. The thing is, because it's honest, it's also a little boring. And the only fun or the only action on pepper happens when you saute it or when you do that tadka, where, like the saying, so the frying of pepper. And so therefore Pepper Fry came about. And I figured that the name fitted all of the 3 values, and it was also an interesting name to have. What pushed me to adopt it via anything else was not only the 3 values, was the fact that, and this is a bit of an internal joke, I'm a vegetarian, and Pepper Fry is associated with every single meat dish that happens in the South. And I thought it would be interesting for a vegetarian to name his company after something which is named after every single meat dish. So that's the internal joke that I carry with myself. It makes me smile, and is one of the great things about being an entrepreneur. You can do some of these interesting things which build memories for you. Yeah.
That was a very interesting, honest answer, I must say. What convinced you that the market was ready for furniture on e-commerce?
Again, great question. I think, so when I had started, and I should have discussed it a little more. I was talking about an insight, right? And I talked about cash on delivery being an insight and how we did not want to give it because of cost. The other insight which, when we chatted with customers, etc., very early, friends, family, etc., we realized was that there were a few things that were happening in the Indian furniture market, which are very different from what people used to say about buying furniture. And there is always, as an entrepreneur, there is what you will get, which is, the obvious answer to a question, and there is what you will observe, or what you will get as an insight if you probe deeper. And let me explain. Do all of you, how many of you think that furniture is something that needs to be touched and felt before you buy it? A quick show of hands. Yeah. Now, that whenever we used to speak to customers, they used to actually tell us, furniture needs to be touched and felt, and you need to be able to see it before you actually buy it. But when we observed customers, here's what was happening. You would go into a shop, typically a shop next to your house, where there would be one bed potentially one study table and a dining table and so on, and you'd see it, and then you'd ask the shopkeeper and you'd say, show me something else. And that person would take out either a catalog or a magazine, okay, and point to a bed in the magazine in a photograph and say, I can make this for you. Yeah? And that was actually 90% of furniture purchase behavior in India. Even though all of us think that the way that people look to buy it is after touching and feeling. And we realized that's not the case. So when we started off, we figured that the internet was as good a method as any for us to be able to deliver this visual catalog. So we knew we had a shot at getting it right. That was the inherent belief, because we realized that people were not buying by touching and feeling. They were actually buying off pictures. And the internet at its core is a great method of showing pictures. And we figured that we had a shot at doing it. It took us still about a couple of years, till 2014, I would think. Business was great. Yeah, we were growing at triple digits, and we continue to do so now, but we were growing at triple digits of a smaller base. And then sometime in 2014, I think we benefited from the tipping point, which is number of people who'd bought, went and talked to a whole bunch of people who were thinking of buying, and suddenly people started buying furniture big time. As we sit today, we do more than 1,000 crores of furniture sales in a year. That makes us larger than any other offline furniture company that exists out there. And it's taken us 4 years to get there. So what is the foundation? The foundation was a belief based on customer insight that we had a shot at being able to sell people furniture of pictures, even though the world told us that that's not how they bought it. They actually were buying it like that. And then over a period of time, over the next few years, we realized that once we got the tipping point going, every single person who bought furniture from us actually became like a showroom for us, because you walk into some a neighbor's house, ask them where did the table come from, and they say, you know what, I got a fantastic purchase done online, and I got it at a great price. And that was enough of a conversation started to get Pepperfry involved in conversations. So that's how it panned out. Did I believe? Yes, I did. Did it take time to do it? Yeah, it took a couple of years. Was it based on a fundamental customer insight? Yes, it was. I do think Indians will continue to buy furniture online way more than they will buy offline.
Here's another one. What's your differentiator? Product, service, or culture?
I think as a business, our most fundamental differentiator is variety. I mean, and I'm trying to pick, because there are a whole bunch of things that every business can be differentiated on. But I'm trying to pick the one thing which we will never give up. And that's the variety, the choice that we offer customers. And if I were to think of this a little grandly, or the way my marketing team says it, we are in the business of democratizing choice. We are in the business, and one of the things that we've achieved over the last couple of years is the fact that we made wooden furniture affordable for every pocket in India. Something that was unheard of 2 years back. So if there's one thing that I think differentiates us, is the fact that we are all about variety. We'll always want to show customers as much as we potentially can. The second thing, I mean, you said the one thing, but I'm just adding this. The second thing is the value that you deliver. I mean, people greater than, people a lot more intelligent than I am, have said that no customer will ever come back to you and say that, you sold me this product too cheap. And that never happens. Because if a person gets product at a great value, they will like it and they will thank you for it, but they will never come back and tell you, you sold it to me too cheap. So delivering value on an ongoing basis in terms of the price at which we provide those products to customers is the second thing that we will never give up. So variety, and the second thing is just the price at which we give products. Those are two fundamental tenets behind which our business has been built.
Thank you, sir. That was the last question we received.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.